sorry, but you can't get me to feel bad when shitty things happen to shitty, evil people. Like, while under that CEO's leadership, they deployed an AI model that had a 90% error rate to automatically deny healthcare claims from people who all had families of their own that are sick, dying, and poor.
I want to make something clear. I don't condone murder, but I'm not going to feign sympathy for the CEO. He has let thousands of people die because they could not get the treatment that they needed.
Our mission and values are focused on helping people live healthier lives and making the health system work better for everyone. Data is at the core of our agenda to improve healthcare, which directly influences how we develop innovative consumer solutions.
No, I can't laugh yet. I've got to hold it in.
Tell ABC News, United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson is dead after being shot in Midtown Manhattan.
Laugh out loud.
Clap if you care. All right, let's move on.
This is my 11th try at making this video because it's going to piss some people off. But sometimes things just have to be said. So I don't care who it pisses off because I've watched a couple other videos that piss me off related to the CEO unaliving, and I just can't understand their thoughts on this. One was talking about their morals since last week with what happened because there's no outrage, no one's angry. We're just all like lollygagging around, you know. No, we've not lost our moral compass. How do I describe this to you people? A lot of people hate the healthcare industry. We're not saying you should go unaliving people when you hate the healthcare industry or anywhere else, okay? You got that through your thick head, okay? Perfect. What we have done is assigned all the healthcare problems and bullshit and the salaries they make and all of the denials and the lack of whatever that has ever happened to people.
So New York City trying to offer $10,000 to find John Wick's protege? You had a better chance of finding your shadow in a pitch dark black room. The CEO who unfortunately met his maker of $1 billion company, and you only trying to offer $10 billion? Make it make sense. You had a better chance of trying to find a needle in a haystack. Y'all better call the Avengers team because that's the only people that's gonna try to help y'all. United Healthcare is worth millions, damn near billions of dollars, and all y'all can do is cut a $10,000 check. I'm gonna try to hold y'all hand when I say this. Y'all ain't gonna find that man. Allegedly. Y'all better call the Powerpuff Girls. Y'all better send out a bat signal and call Batman. They really thought that $10,000 was gonna make somebody move. Like $10,000 in this economy, y'all can't be serious about finding this man. Y'all could at least try to bump this up to about $500K. $500K, y'all find him by the close of business. They trying to offer minimum wage prices to go out there and try to find John Wick's protege. All I can say is good luck to you. And I know the ex-CEO of United Healthcare is looking up at them. And yes, I did say looking up at them in extreme disappointment. Like I would say they have my thoughts and prayers, but it might just require a authorization first.
And completely out of touch and insult the intelligence of the American people.
Would have been nice if they wrote what he said. He was screaming about the injustice of our healthcare pricing and how it is offensive to people's lived experience. And what he didn't say is that he's innocent. And forget the fact that when he sees the cameras, he's like a tiger, but he was a pussy cat when it was just him and the officers. The message he hissed should be heard. Healthcare so expensive, so easily denied that it offends people's lived experience with oppressive health insurance. But how would he know? He had a bad back and a surgery, but there's no reason to believe he was left broke or broken by a horror story with an insurance company. His lived experience was making money off healthcare. His family owned nursing homes that made them rich. 7-figure donations to hospitals. Paid for him to go to the Ivy League, to live in Hawaii, to create his best life. My point is not to diminish the outrage about healthcare, or even to diminish him, but to source where what we're seeing with him comes from. You see, this guy is part of a problem that is harder to fix than healthcare or any corporate issue. He is proof of a new fundamentalism, appropriated oppression. In this case, the anger of those who get done dirty by big health insurers. And he's not alone. He reminds me of white kids I've seen turning protests about police using excessive force into riots, or more recently, like the kids on campus wearing the Hamas headgear. There is a new wave of people right here who have decided the best way to address perceived injustice is to pretend to inhabit the victim role, as if they live it, which they don't. The problem with that is the pretend leads them too often to the extreme, where they are not the change agents, but proof of what needs to change. They become what they say they oppose. There are many causes of this, but a primary one is our toxic political party wars. This is an outgrowth of empowering fringe thinking, what the left and right have been stoking for years, both of them, especially online. Get angry, get even, own them. Hard to find a podcast that isn't desperately imploring people to reject everything in society, except what they're saying, of course. Even the manifesto of this assassin manifests the weakness of the assassin's own choices. He identifies problems with transparency and pricing irregularities and profits over people and health.
Let me pause this for a second.
And health insurance, yes.
This is apparently his manifesto. And I just wanted to read a particular part right here. It says, a reminder, the U.S. has the #1 most expensive healthcare system in the world, yet we rank roughly number 42 in life expectancy. United is the indecipherable, whatever that was, largest company in the U.S. by market cap, behind only Apple, Google, Walmart. It has grown and grown, but as our life expectancy is what I'm assuming he meant to say. Are y'all sure this guy was Ivy League? No, the reality is these, whatever that was, indecipherable, have simply gotten too powerful, and they continue to abuse our country for immense profit because the American public has allowed them to get away with it. Obviously, the problem is more complex, but I do not have space, and frankly, I do not pretend to be the most qualified person. No, you just would rather play God. You would just rather play God. I'm going to play a couple more minutes of this before I share my thoughts on this and what I think about it, and how I think that anybody who championed this, quite frankly, murderer is sick, and should probably just go ahead and pack up and leave the U.S. But let's listen to a couple more minutes of this because Cuomo is cooking.
True. Too often, true. Of course, many industries do this. But healthcare matters more than just about any other industry because it can literally be life or death. The problem is real. Obama tried to address it with the ACA. It's interesting. Trump wants to disrupt everything, right? You can get off that now. Yet, even he never goes after the big insurers. We know why. They get what they want. But the idea that you change something that is bad by doing something worse, now you don't have to be a genius with an Ivy League pedigree to know that that is stupid. The surrender of moral high ground and the obvious lack of connection to reality is so apparent. I want to show you a clip from Piers Morgan, his podcast, and one of this assassin's supporters. Watch this lady.
Why would you be in such a celebratory mood about the execution of another human being?
I do believe in the sanctity of life, and I think that's why I felt, along with so many other Americans, joy, unfortunitly, because it feels like...
Seriously?
I mean...
Joy at the man's execution?
Maybe not joy, but certainly not empathy. Because again...
We're watching the footage. How can this make you joyful?
Smiling when she explains how murder kinda sorta makes sense when so many have been killed by this guy Thompson. Like she was taking a position in debate class, but you see, when you actually pull the trigger and you end a life, there's nothing rhetorical about it. Brian Thompson was a CEO, not a death camp operator. Our death rate is too high. And you know what it has to do with? Our diet. As much as anything we're denied by insurers. And yes, I think both have...
He cooking right now. He cooking right now. Yeah, our death rate is too high. And I think the message there was just simply a lot of the things that we are exposed to as far as health risks we bring upon ourselves. But y'all don't want to talk about that because there's a bigger point to drive home, right? It's fine. Let's
Have to
continue.
change. But what just happened only makes change harder. Because now those wanting change are worse than what they oppose. He just did one of the few things that is worse than denying care that may lead to early death. He guaranteed death and to make nothing better. The irony is that if genius assassins like this guy and his fans, with their perverse smile, had tested their own ideas, which of course fundamentalists never do, they would have learned that systemic change is rarely achieved by violence, certainly not one violent act. Ask the January 6th crew, or read the study by Chenoweth and Steffen in Why Civil Resistance Works, suggesting nonviolent campaigns are twice as likely to achieve their goals. Well, what about how America was born? Revolution. Good point. If you want to reject a violent oppressor and create your own society, that's one thing. But then this guy should have gone to Ukraine and fought for them. World War II, the French Revolution, the Algerian Revolution. When an oppressor uses force to enforce their will, sometimes fighting back is freedom. But that's not what this is about. Unless he wants to overthrow capitalism, him and his friends. In that case, get ready to see the angry side of Uncle Sam. No, this is about making a system better. Stopping abuse, changing rules of how people get to do what they do, especially when the health of others, their lives, matter. How do we best do that? History shows us, right here in America, the biggest change to our system has been correcting systemic racism. Now, we're not there, but what we have achieved was not achieved by violence. The violence was on the side of not wanting to change what was eventually achieved. The assassins, the violent, they were resisting change, right? Not creating it. Dr. King, a generation of those committed to civil disobedience, got rid of Jim Crow, raised up the law, the Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act, 64, 65. That changed. That changed what was bad and made us better. They weren't trying to kill those who were taking advantage. Same with South Africa. Mandela didn't sink to the means of the oppressor. That's why he won. The people who have changed the world are the opposite of these fundamentalist extremists. I don't know where they're learning this. Well, I kind of do. But I really don't know where they're going to unlearn it. But it's got to start with us. You know, if I show you terrorists with beards and burqas, you get it. You get the threat of fundamentalism right away, right? But I'm telling you, these posers under our roof are every bit as dangerous. We have real problems. But the only way any meaningful change ever happens is to create better by being better, not worse. Hey,
You know, as I get older, one of the things that I pride myself on is my ability to be able to think through certain situations and having a what people will call a level-headed approach to most worldviews, I think anyway. My positions and my stances on topics and issues may at times ruffle some feathers and may be even in full opposition to people within my own close circle and friend groups. And I'm okay with that because I'm still able to receive and consider other perspectives, even if I don't necessarily agree with them. And I think that having that type of approach allows a person to operate in the quote unquote gray area without swinging too far in either direction, right? And it keeps you from taking radical positions on certain ideologies that others may share. And I'm speaking specifically to this United Healthcare CEO who was gunned down in the streets of New York like a rabid dog. And the general response from people in this country, if you go and read through some of these comments on social media, I'll put some up here in the video. It's honestly a bit jarring and sickening the way that we've become so desensitized to the loss of human life. And I'm willing to stand on an island all by my lonesome in my position and in my opinion, because I have no interest in herd mentality. None. But just based on the facts that we have, not speculation, not far leftists and their ideas of what they think the reason could have been for real, not conspiracy theories. I'm talking about what we know for certain. And based on what we know for certain is that this man, Brian The CEO, Brian Thompson, was a husband. He was a father. He had an entire family that I'm sure loved and depended on him. And to raise a banner in our society for a murderer, all because he assassinated a CEO in public, is absolutely insane to me. All the while using the justification of maybe the person reached a boiling point because of denied health care coverage. If that is a valid reason to take someone's life in your mind, then you need to seek help. Honestly. We can entertain the other shit with him being in court for, insider trading and dirty under the table dealings. We can entertain that another time. We can talk about that stuff separately. But at the very root of this here, there has been a loss of life. And I think it's a very rigid line that we walk. Anytime we take these radical positions and stances on why a cold-blooded murderer should be praised because he killed someone that you didn't even know. I bet most of y'all had no clue who Brian Thompson was before he was assassinated on the streets of New York. I know it for a fact. On any ordinary day, Brian Thompson could have walked right past you on the street and you wouldn't have looked twice at him. Why? Because prior to the world finding out who he was, to most people, he was just some dude. Yeah. And then the same people that complain about the way things are in this country still find a way to spend their entire life here. It's remarkable. Last I checked, you can book a flight to anywhere you want in the world. If you think America is so corrupt to the point that it disgusts you, then by all means, you can leave. And I used to be a part of that bandwagon that hated everything about big corporations and how they cheat and take from people. But moreover, I think a part of me has evolved past my anger or disapproval of their practices in order to take a position of, you know what? Fuck it. How can I win? That's all I'm focused on at this point in my life. Yes, the justice system needs work. Yes, it's unfair. Yes, it's biased. Yes, Big Pharma is involved in dirty practices in order to continue to maintain and grow their businesses. But how can I win amongst all that? Because we can sit here and do a deep dive into every conspiracy theory that the Reddit forum has to offer. But after you're done doing all that talking and thinking, guess what? You still got to play the game of life. All them theories ain't about to change a goddamn thing in your life. You know, my wife works for the city. And do you know how many days she's come home telling me about some disgruntled resident calling and talking crazy, talking nasty, making threats and yelling through the phone? God forbid at any point a city resident could reach their boiling point because they feel like the city slighted them or did them wrong or their business wrong in some type of way, charged them too many taxes, charged them too many fees. And they ride up to the city building and decide to wreak havoc. And meanwhile, my wife is on the inside of that building. God forbid. Is that justifiable? Is that an action that's justifiable just because somebody lost their cool and feel like they've been wrong to go and play God? That's justifiable to y'all? And some of you might say, well, she's not at the top of the food chain, but let's just say she was. Let's say she got promoted to city director. Does her position then justify murder? It's ridiculous. I believe that people are so narrow-minded when it suits a narrative that they like, that saying radical shit in the face of something sinister, evil, and vile and devilish becomes acceptable. Because somewhere in the twisted recesses of their minds, murdering someone is justifiable when they're a CEO of a billion-dollar corporation, and that's absurd to me. I'll never agree with that stance. You want change? I don't think this is the way you get it done. Again, if you believe that knocking off CEOs is the way that we should send a message to billionaire companies across the world about morally corrupt practices, then you should never take a job anywhere in this country working for any company, because the goal is always to pay you as little as possible while making as much as possible by any means necessary. And that by any means necessary will likely include some kind of immoral substandard that misaligns with whatever you believe. That's the America you live in. That's capitalism. And that isn't changing anytime soon. You don't like it? You're free to leave at any time to go to a place you feel will treat you better. Nobody is keeping you here. But you know what? You won't. You won't leave. Chances are most of you will live and die in this country because it's much easier to talk about how you want change instead of putting yourself in position to experience it. To experience and provide change, that means you actually got to accomplish something. And it isn't lost on me how most of you that think it's good to run out and gun down a CEO on the streets of New York because you feel like he was doing some kind of injustice to you and yours. Meanwhile, the entire time you're sitting there speaking from a position of ultimate privilege. You don't think it's privilege to even own a phone or a laptop that you can so brazenly spread this misinformation and dangerous thought patterns? Then go to a third world country like North Korea or Iran and tell me about how you're being oppressed then. Places where there's real oppression happening. You think this changed something fundamentally within the healthcare industry? And yes, I read about the Blue Cross making the decision to reverse a policy that would limit anesthesia coverage. But from what I've read, they were already on the toes and brink of making an announcement to change that policy because their own doctors were telling them that it was a bad idea and the policy wouldn't work. But have you heard anything about price changes to medicine? Have you heard anything about healthcare coverage rates changing? Have you read anything about denied coverage rates improving and making a complete 180-degree turn? The only thing it changed is that now CEOs will begin to travel with security detail. That's it. They say that this guy was a great student who comes from an Ivy League background, surely working himself into a position where he could effectively make changes from a position on the board or even the procurement of a team of like-minded individuals, surely finding a way to legally fight the system for the same cause would have been more effective, but he didn't do that. Instead, he took the coward's approach. He pouted all the way from Atlanta to New York on the bus just so he could shoot a man from behind with a silencer. What the fuck was brave about that? But y'all got it. Y'all got it. I'm done. Drop a comment below. Love to know your thoughts on this. And I'll see you all in the next one. Later.